I've grappled and thought about humility for a while, or grappled with, I should say, because I've wanted to be humble, as I think all of us strive to be, unless you are narcissistic by nature. But it has been brought to my attention time and time again that humility is not that which the majority thinks that it is. You are, it seems like we are so often called humble while we lie. And for example, you can underplay your abilities, underplay your resume, underplay the things that you know are being stated accurately, and you would be called humble for it. And if humility consists in the ability to lie, then that is not something that I want. Because time and time again, people know they're capable of the job. People know that they're better than somebody at something, and they don't claim it. And someone will speak up in defense of them and say, oh, they're just being humble. So humility is consistent with lying? I don't, if that is true, then it is not something that I want. I think humility is consistent with the truth, but it's just so hard to, understand or know what humility truly is, or what humility implies, or the position that it holds in our minds, like what that thing really is. Because in the Bible, Moses claimed to be the most humble man. And upon first discovering this, I thought this has to be false. How can the most humble man state that he is the most humble man? You think by nature, by design, stating this fact would make you unhumble. But imagine for the second that Moses was able to know for certainty that he was the most humble. Does him stating this fact make him not humble? Now, we may say that humility is impossible to objectively know that you are the most humble. You could argue that, and I think you'd probably win that argument. But imagine for a second you could know for certain that you were the most humble, and you stated it. How is telling the truth corrupting your humility? I don't think it is. Maybe it's, don't brag about it, don't be super cocky and put people down over it, but to state that it is the case that you are the most humble, I don't think can go against humility. I don't think that can go against your humility if you can objectively know it. And in some cases, like I said, I don't know if it's ever possible to objectively know it, but I think in some cases you can be pretty certain you are quote unquote more humble than somebody. And I say quote unquote, and use it very lightly because I don't know what humility is. I really don't. I've grappled with it for hours, which sounds crazy, but I have. I've thought about it much because it's just such an interesting construct to me. Like what it is, how does one obtain it? Is it what everyone thinks it is? Like, what is it? And it's interesting to me because the same behaviors done by different people are received differently. Depending on age, I believe. I think our age has a huge impact on if we're humble, if we're confident, if we're cocky, or if we're wise. And age should not have a say in that department. It shouldn't matter how old you are, past a certain age. But even then, wisdom does not discriminate. That's one of the great things of wisdom. It doesn't discriminate between age, race, nationality, and nothing. Wisdom does not discriminate. But in our minds, we discriminate the people who are able to be wise. Obviously, it's you think the person in the movie who's the wise person is the old man with a gray beard. And, that's like when you think of someone who's wise, you think of someone like that, like a Gandalf, or an older person. And it's like it's 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 not wrong, but I think age does the same thing that power does. It just brings out more of who you truly are. And if you're wise, then you become more wise with age. And if you're a fool, you become more foolish with age. I think that's just the case. And it's like it's very interesting to me. One person could say something at the age of 20, and then they could say the same exact thing at the age of 40, and their pride and their cockiness turns into confidence and humility. It's just it's just weird. It's just weird. And I don't if humility truly consists in one's ability to not care, not take things serious, to lie, I don't know if it's something we should really want, should really strive for. I think there is something good about not being too overly cocky. I think there's something good about understanding that you always have something more to learn, and the second you think you've learned it all, you cease to know it all, and you cannot learn that which you think you already know. I think that's very valuable to know, but you can be humble while being confident, while knowing all that stuff. So, as I said, I've grappled with this for a long time, and I don't really have any answers. So, you won't receive an answer in this video, and I'm sorry if you were searching for that, but I think you really just have to come up with it on what it means to you on your own. I think to me it means definitely not lying. It means being truthful, but it means not being overly cocky, not being cocky at all, not letting your ego get in the way, not stating it if it doesn't need to be stated. Sometimes we, you know, talk about our achievements as if they needed to be talked about, or give our credentials as if anyone asked. And I think this can sometimes go against humility. But if you are asked, are you the best person for the job? And you believe that you are, it is not humble to say, oh no, no, not me. I'm just little old me. It's not humble. It's foolish. And I don't want if humility is consistent with foolishness, I do not want it. And I don't think anybody wants it, but we all want to be humble. So I don't think we can categorize it in this department of ignorance, of willful blindness. But I think it's not cockiness for sure. So it's not stating things that don't need to be stated, but when things need to be stated, one needs to be truthful. One should not lie. One should not act as if they don't have the credentials that they have when the situation arises.